and I have, and several times I've thought, oh, well, we could bring Jennifer into to this panel or that panel. And finally, I was like, no, we should just have her, especially in conjunction with Anna's inkle weaving workshops, just do her own things. So Jennifer is based in Florida. She's a weaver specializing in the inkle loom. Inkled Pink is her website, I believe. And but she is one of our own. She is a limited member, thanks to, I believe, Michelle Belson introduced her to us, and has been an active participant in our Zoom meetings. And I'm just delighted to welcome her, and I'll let her take it away. Thank you.
I'm muting all.
Thank you, Virginia. I do know Michelle actually because I am in Florida, and so I know Michelle from being here in Florida, but I want to say that I learned about you all from your own advertising. I was trying to remember what program you had, but there was something that I saw on Facebook and I wanted to view it. And so I reached out and saw all the wonderful things you all did, and so I joined. And then saw that Michelle was part of the group. So it is lovely to see everyone. I am a limited member out in Florida, and I have to say there are a few faces I think I saw. I got to visit the Kumihimo exhibit last month when you guys did the tour. So I happened to be traveling that day, and I altered my flight. I was going to, where was I going? To Tacoma. And I altered my flight to come out a day ahead to join your tour. So there's a couple of familiar faces on here. But thank you for having me. I did in 2000, what year? Last year, COVID time warp. Last year I did a daily band practice. And by that, I wove a motif a day on an inkle band. I've been a weaver for about 11 years, and 99.9% of that time has been devoted to inkle weaving. Inkle weaving has my heart. I now say that I'm a band weaver who prefers to weave bands on an inkle loom, because inkle weaving in theory is, we call it that because we have an inkle loom today, right? There are countries all over the world that produce bands but don't weave them on an inkle loom. So band weaving is my passion that I adapt to the inkle loom. So let's see, share screen. Let's see. It does not look, there we go. So daily band practice. The idea behind my band practice was I wanted to do a bit of weaving every day, even if only for 15 minutes a day. The reason being that we can just never find time to do what we want to do that feeds our soul, right? Things that we have laundry to do, we have kids, we have work, we have grocery shopping. There's always something that captures our time that takes us away from doing things that just allow us to pause and relax and feed our souls. Somewhere, and I wish I could find the quote, so this is a paraphrase, that we will never find time because we have this set finite amount of time. There's 24 hours in a day. So you have to make time to do the things that you want to do. And so that's what the idea for me of doing the daily band practice was making time to be able to weave every day, because it was something, or it is something that's very important to me. And the reason for, my practice would be band weaving because that's what I do. And so when I got into it, my thought was, well, let's do a little bit of research. What is a daily practice? According to Eric Maisel, from a PhD, who came up with this definition in Psychology Today that I thought was great, the formal way that you pay daily attention to something that is important, and that is important to you. And so important to me is the idea of creating fabric. Many people do daily practices of all sorts, and they do them for different reasons, right? So you have people do it for skill acquisition. Example, you're trying to learn a language or an instrument, and so you practice every day. Last year, I also learned how to spin cotton, and if anyone has taken any classes or watched a video by Joan Wayne, the cotton spinning guru, she says spin a bit every day, and that way you become better at whatever the skill is you're trying to learn. Some people do it spiritual growth or enlightenment. Just doing the practice can be an act of prayer or meditation for people. When I am weaving, it's as though time stands still. All other distractions seem to just melt away, and I am at peace. Goal achievement, running a marathon. So, you're gonna run a marathon, you have to train, you have to run a little bit every day. Taking that to the fiber sense, people do what's it called, Spinzilla every year. And so they spin a little bit every day, or maybe a lot every day, to get to the goal of a certain amount of spun yarn. And sometimes a daily practice is just about personal fulfillment. I enjoy this thing, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it every day. The idea for me to do a daily practice came from Tommy Scanlon. I know there are a lot of tapestry weavers in this group. Tommy Scanlon is an amazing tapestry artist, author, and instructor. And she does something called tapestry diaries, where she weaves a little bit every day to chronicle her year. And this is a screenshot from her page. You can go and take a look at scanlontapestries.com. And these represent tapestries that she wove all year long. She'll put a warp on a loom and weave a little bit every day. I had the opportunity in 2018 to take a workshop from her. I had always wanted to, actually I joined the Weavers Guild here to learn tapestry weaving, and there was no one in the guild at the time who was a tapestry weaver. So I never learned that, but I found inkle, which I think was divinely led. But finally in 2018, Tommy Scanlon came, and I had the opportunity to take a workshop from her. And I fell in love with the idea of these daily tapestry diaries. So it was a seed that was planted. I never did anything with, but it was always in the back of my mind. And this picture is a picture I took in the workshop. She had some of her tapestry diaries laid out on the table. And if you see here, the little squares or shapes represent days. And she can explain to you exactly, like, this blue square here in the middle was what month it was, what day it was. They all represent something. And what's fascinating is, so you see these white squares in the middle of the tapestry. Those represent days that she did not get to weave, days that she missed. So I think it was fascinating that she wove every day, but even represented days that she didn't have a chance to weave per se. Here's another tapestry diary that she did. And to represent the days that she missed here, she just left open warp. That was very creative. And you can see it as in this close-up. This is actually different than the other one, but similar in the geometry of it, the geometric and dots and lines. But each little square represents a day. Another inspiration that I had for daily practice was an author and artist named Wendy Chen. She wrote a book, The Year of Knots, that chronicled her year of learning a knot a day. Since this was on a whim, she decided to learn a knot a day. Her story is fascinating. If you get an opportunity to go to her website or to purchase her book, she has become an artist through this and now does installations, amazing knotting installations in hotels and in airports and in people's homes. But she learned a knot a day for a year. She chronicled it on Instagram at the The Year in Knots. And then she also ended up writing a book. Her Instagram profile was inspiration for me in posting to Instagram what I created every day. So I get an idea. I'm a researcher. So I wanted to see, are there other people who are doing daily fiber practices? Of course there are. And I came across One Button a Day by Gina Barrett. And she's a button maker and author and teacher. And she chronicled a couple, I think she's done this 3 times. She made 1 button a day by hand. And then she also posted it on Instagram. So this is her Instagram feed from 2020. This year, she is doing 1 button a week, because one of the things that you learn is doing it daily can be daunting, or more than you expected it to be in terms of time. That was one of the reasons I said to myself, at least 15 minutes. If I can commit 15 minutes a day to weaving, I would get some in every day. We'll talk about how that went as I go. Then another artist did, this is a stitch a day. And if you see the embroidery hoop, every little box here represented a day in the year. And at the end of this amazing tapestry of stitches was created through embroidery. So those were a few examples of other people doing fiber daily practices. And this one I thought was absolutely amazing by Ashley Hackshaw. She did a button and stitches a day. And so it's literally, she stitched a button and did some embroidery stitches every day in this hoop for a year. So this hoop represents her year of stitching. Just a beautiful piece of art, I thought. So now it's time for me to develop my daily practice. And what do? I came up with 3 simple rules, or I said guidelines. Interact with my loom for at least 15 minutes every day, either weaving or warping. As I went on, I realized that I didn't want warping to represent my interacting with the loom in terms of a way to show that I worked on the loom. So I tried to weave every day and a motif a day and share that motif every day, which was important to keep me honest, right? To say that every day I need to post, so then I make sure that I weave. And then the last thing that I said for myself is I need to enjoy the weaving or enjoy the time. So trying not to make it a chore, but something that just I step away and this is what I get to do for at least 15 minutes a day. But wait, I had questions in developing my practice. What weave structure should I use? I can't weave an entire band every day. What pattern should I weave if I do small patterns? And then what should I call it? Because, you know, everybody had their little hashtag or their handle on Instagram. Well, I like a good pun. Hence, Virginia mentioned it earlier. My blog is called Inkled Pink, play on words, tickled pink, inkled pink. So it was pretty easy to come up with the idea of daily band practice, you know, like an instrument, daily band practice. Yeah, I'm punny. So that was not hard to do. But when it came to what weave structure to use, I thought about it and thought about it. A lot of people do pick up on what is known as the Baltic style pickup. I love a horizontal bar warp. So the horizontal stripes, I've just always loved this warp. And it lends itself very well to doing very, very many different techniques of pickup. So I thought about that. And then I remembered this book, Inkle by Evelyn Nair. Inkle is a self-published book by that she did in 1974. It is out of print and can be hard to find. If you look right now on Amazon, it's probably listed for between $150 to $350. there is a weaver somewhere who has this book on their shelf that will give it to you or sell it to you. I finally found my copy for $25, so you can find it. But when I first started weaving, I took this book out from our guild library, and it is a book that she explores horizontal bar warp weaving techniques. It's full of patterns for pickup. So I pulled it off the shelf, I looked through it, and I counted the different patterns that she had, and I realized that if I wove one of those motifs every day, it would get me through just over 70 days. So that was what I decided I was going to do, was a motif a day on a horizontal bar warp, starting with Evelyn Nair's book. And that's what I did. And so this was my first month's band. And some of the motifs from her book, it started from simple, one color to two color, mixing and changing which ones you're picking up. And I really had not explored this technique prior to, I had done a little bit of pickup. So if you look at the motif here in the bottom middle, I had done simple things like that. Even the one to the right, picking up and making a V. I had done pickup on this some, but not as much as I had explored on the Baltic. So doing the motifs like the one on the top left and the one in the middle on the top were different and new to me in terms of how the nuance of picking up these two colors in the same warp, because reading the pattern and picking up, there was a little trick that I didn't realize about picking up and dropping the fibers work in pairs. And so with these early motifs, I did a lot of unweaving as much as I did weaving. So my 15 minutes a day ended up being sometimes about 45 minutes to an hour, but that was great because I was interacting with my weaving in a way that I didn't on a regular basis. One of the things that I have absolutely loved about this warp structure on an inkle on band weaving is that middle bottom motif. Manipulating this textile just really can change how it looks from these basic horizontal stripes to, if you look at that middle motif, it's vibrant, it's energetic, it looks like it's moving, and it's the same fabric, but just by picking up and manipulating a few threads and such a simple warp, you really change the look. And then the one on the far right, I like to call that, like, it looks like an optical illusion, like the fibers are moving. So this is what really drew me to this motif, this technique. And so once I got finished with Evelyn Nair's book, or almost finished, I said, okay, well, now I need some more patterns. What do I do? I'd again always thought I'd love to work through Ann Dixon's book. Never made time to do it. So that's what I did. And so Ann Dixon got me through February. And this was a fun band to weave because I used the Pantone colors of the year in this band, the yellow and the gray. And it was a lot of fun to weave this because these were not colors that I normally would have used. This band also presented my first personal design, if you will. The band on the bottom right was the motif that I wove for Valentine's Day. So I designed a heart and figured out how to do the negative space in the middle. I would do it a little differently now that I know more after spending as much time as I did with this warp structure, but I was pretty proud of my heart. Some more of Ann Dixon, exploring the technique. And what was fun about hers was she did a lot of mixing of single threads with double threads to create, I would say, more delicate patterns. Hers was really fun to weave. This was March, I believe, still in Ann Dixon's book. I had to share all of these because it was hard to pick a few, and I wanted to give you an idea of what it looked like at the end of a band that had so many different motifs on it. So then I finished Ann Dixon, and I needed some more motifs. And I looked through Helen Bress's book and I saw a few things. But what I realized was Helene Bress, Evelyn Nair, and Ann Dixon, but all explored this one technique in common that was on a horizontal bar, horizontal stripe warp, but different than what I had already been doing. Evelyn Nair calls it reticulated. Helene Bress calls it speckled. And Ann Dixon calls this technique South American pebble weave, which is different than the pebble weave that Laverne Waddington does. The technique is done with a thick and thin warp thread. So the white is thinner in this than the purple is. And so what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get these triangles around the fatter warp thread that creates pebbles. And so I wove this technique from all three of their books, which was interesting to do. But there were challenges that I faced as I went along, which was great because it was learning. I'd been, like I said, inkle weaving almost exclusively for 11 years, and here I'm learning. This warp structure, when you do pick up, has a quirk to it, where when you're weaving going up and to the right, so you're picking up the threads that are on the right, you get pretty decent crisp lines, if you can see the bottom of the V. But when you pick up going in the opposite direction, you get these little feathers at the top. And I didn't understand that at first. And so I unwove this motif. I can't even tell you. I mean, you can see how fuzzy it is because it just started getting, the fibers started sticking to each other because I kept unweaving it, because I didn't understand why my motif, why my diamond wasn't looking nice and pretty. It's a quirk of the structure. Back to the pebble weave, the speckled weave, the reticulated. This one is something that I would like to explore more. It is very popular in South American countries that do warp face weave. And I don't know if my purple was not thick enough or I weaved too tightly, but I could not get nice diamonds in between. So the white warp is supposed to really, these are supposed to look like diamonds and not bees in between. And I just could not get it to look the way it was supposed to. And the motif on the left, that's supposed to be an owl. If you look in the book, this image is in Helene Bress's book. And if you look at hers looks like an owl. Mine looks like an urn, maybe? I don't know. So this was a challenging warp structure that I will visit, but did not get to master. Another challenge I had was color choice paralysis, or I like to call it CCP. I am a huge fan, not because Michelle's on, but of Lunatic Fringe. Lunatic Fringe yarns also present a problem for me. All the colors go together, but they all look beautiful together. So I can tell myself, I want to pick 3 colors. And this picture is old, so this was before they released the TNT collection. So now you have the jewel tones and you have what I would call the earth tones. And so I would say, I want 3 colors. And then I'd pick 3 colors, and then I'd add in a color, and I was like, oh, no, let me pick another color. And then it took me forever to decide what colors to put together. So then I started looking for color inspiration. I saw this picture and I employed a technique that many people do, but I had never done it until I took a class from Rosalie Nelson. And I did a yarn warp based on this photo. And because I have the Lunatic Fringe yarns, I had all the colors that were perfect for this band. And this is what I got. So using pictures and all of my I like to say lunatic fringe yarns are like the 64 box of crayons. So using my yarn crayons, I was able to come up with some pretty, I thought, pretty good inspiration. This was an iris that we saw on a walk, took a picture, printed it out. I did a yarn warp and a yarn wrap, and this was the band I got. Even our shower curtain was inspiration. This was the band I used. So on my own, I have woven at this point through Evelyn Nair's book. I've woven through Ann Dixon and some of Helene Bress's book. And now I'm midway through the year and I need more patterns. So I decided to start designing on my own. But I didn't have time to draft and design in addition to weaving every day. Some of you who are band weavers may know of Annie McHale. Well, Annie McHale once said to me that she does not draft patterns. Actually, she recently started drafting since her new book, but she doesn't draft patterns. She puts a warp on the loom, even without a draft, warps it up, and then just starts weaving. And so I said, as a challenge, let me give that a shot. And I did. And so the first month I did that, I decided to try using rep weave, which is one of my favorite warp structures on a floor loom. And I had seen Robin Spady had done this a couple times on some bands. So I was like, let me give that a shot. And these were all my designs. The first time I sat down and just said, let me play, I called them inkle doodlings. And I was amazed every time I sat down and just started picking up threads, and I came up with the motif at the end. I will admit that in the end, I was weaving more than 15 minutes a day, which turned out to be fine, but it was wonderful to just sit and create and play. This was actually really fun to play with, not just rep weave, but also weft floats as part of the pattern design. There are so many here because this was my absolute favorite band of all that I've woven. I'm not sure if it's because of the red, how strong the red was, or because of some of the motifs I designed this month, or the combination thereof, but I loved this band. In particular, these are some of my favorites. The one, I think that the one on, can you all see my pointer?
Yep.
Okay, so this one in particular and the one right below it may be my two favorites. And I just sat down and started weaving, and that's what I came up with. So those were a lot of fun. But in terms of inspiration for patterns happen also. So the one with the yellow square around it, if you look here on the left, that's that pattern. Picture on the right, inspiration can come from anywhere. I was watching, I always forget the name. It's either Frankie and Grace or Grace and Frankie with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. One of the characters was wearing this shirt. I paused the TV, grabbed my phone, and took a picture of his shirt, because that just said to me, I can weave that. And I think I did a pretty good job of replicating that as a pattern. Op art, Bargello, and curves. So as fiber artists, we all have had fiber interests that go back over the years, right? Well, Bargello needlepoint I've never done it, but I've got at least 4 books on the shelf. I've always been drawn to the patterns. Op art, to me, is very, as a weave structure, overshot reminds me of op art. And so op art, Bargello, and curves all go together, and I wanted to see how I could bring those to band weave. And so I started playing with op art. The blending of the moving of the lines just by picking up one thread in one row and then the immediate adjacent thread in the next row, created such movement and illusion. I was so pleased with the way these came out. It was so fun to weave these and to see what it was going to be after I wove it. Now, I will admit that most of these, except maybe the one on the bottom left and the one on the top right, I did draft these in Excel first because I wanted to see what they would do. I wanted to play with the movement some. Inspiration from Bargello. I think the one on the bottom left and the one on the top right most represent Bargello, but all of these were inspired by the idea of picking up groups of threads, or in Bargello, stitching groups of thread in graduating levels and creating pattern. And then curves. These, I really, really want to play with this some more. I can just imagine a band that the curve undulates in and out and in and out, up and down the band. I was so pleased to be able to actually create curves on such a straight type of textile. This was a lot of fun. I'd like to play with it with a thinner thread also to see. I mean, I think I really could get some movement that way. Okay, I admit I missed some days. I missed a lot of days in the end, but I had not planned on, like as Tommy Scanlon, as I shared earlier, wove white spaces, left blank warp. I hadn't planned what was I going to do if I missed days. When Wendy Chan missed days, she just missed days. She didn't reweave it or worry about it. I mean, make it up. She just missed them. But I wanted to represent it somehow because I did have this long, length of cloth. The first one I wove, that I missed, this was actually April 2nd, was the first day I missed a day of weaving a motif. And I just represented it by doing plain. Great idea, except what happens if I miss 2 days in a row, which did happen. So then I came up with the idea of weaving lines. And so if you look at the one on the right here going vertically, I missed 5 days in this. This one represents the 5th day that I missed. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertical lines that do bend to the left of missed days. The one on the right, I missed 1, 2, 3, 4. That was also 5 days. So I missed a lot of days in this month span. So I did not, when I missed a day, when I started to weave it again, I wove my missed days and that day's motif, which actually ended up becoming a little cumbersome. And so I say it became cumbersome because if I missed 5 days before I could weave my next motif, I had to weave 5 days worth plus, let me say that differently. I wove a motif that had 1 line. I wove a motif that had 2 lines, and a motif that had 3 lines, and a motif that had 4 lines, because I wanted to have a motif for every day. But if I missed 5 days, that meant I needed to weave 6 motifs. That's when it became cumbersome. And weaving all of those lines actually took more time than I had anticipated. So then I decided to start using numbers to represent the days that I missed. I still wove a number for every day that I missed, but it was easy, it was faster to just weave a number than to weave all the lines. And I chose this picture to show you, again, learning. This was my first attempt at a number 8. It looks more like a 3. The way that I did the pickup, this area here in the middle needed something to bridge this gap of the 2 circles. And so for the next month, when I missed again, and I made a mistake in counting. Instead of building on, I started the month at 1 again and wove up to 8. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I need to add those 8 to the 30 days before it that I missed. But this one, I finally figured out, if I pick up the bottom warp and weave and let that bridge that space, it looks more cohesive as a number 8. And then 8s became one of my favorite numbers that I ended up weaving. I was pleased with the way that it looked. And then after 127 days, yes, I missed 127 days. And at the end of the year, I wove, I think it took me, I don't know, maybe 5 days to weave 127 numbers. I did not want the year to end without weaving my last motifs. So these were the last 3 motifs that I did for 2021. I chose red and white, not because it was December, but in Florida, the colors that are blooming in December are red and green. The Brazilian pepper tree, our holly is blooming. Red and green was everywhere. So that was the color inspiration for this band, not Christmas. What did I learn? This basket represents my year of weaving from 2021. I learned to give myself grace to start where I am. I did not learn that until the end of the year, but by not starting where I was, meaning that I had missed some days and it became a pressure for me to now catch up. If I had just started where I was, it would have been easier to pick up the loom on day 15, as opposed to thinking, okay, it's day 15, I have to weave 15 motifs plus today's motif. I didn't have time to do that. But if I had just picked up the loom on day 15 and said, hey, you know what? I missed, go ahead and weave. I think it would have been, it would have ended as a more enjoyable process to give myself grace to start where I am. So that's a lesson that I will take forward in other things also. I gained a deep familiarity with this warp structure. I still absolutely love it. And I envision weaving with it more. Fingers crossed that I will release some patterns that are on this warp structure, because it's not one that people explore often. So I really would like to share more about it. But ultimately, I did get joy out of interacting with my warp as much as I did this year. Even though I didn't make it to weave a motif every day, I wove more this year in 2021 than I ever have. And what I learned is that it's the commitment to doing the weaving that allows that to happen. So if you would like to see all of the motifs that I did share all of them on Instagram, and you can find those at Daily Band Practice. I did blog in the beginning every day, at least I think until the end of March. I blogged every day at inklepink.com about the motif. I gave a little bit more background or information about maybe the challenge of that motif or where it was inspired from. But unfortunately, that became another thing that was too big and too much to do every day. So to weave every day and then blog about it every day and to post every day was too much. So I just stopped blogging and gave myself grace and permission to just post on Instagram and weave every day. And so that is my year of daily band practice. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much.
That was very nice. Very nice.
Jennifer has sent me all the materials with all the links and everything, and I will, let's see, I'm trying to figure out what to do with it, but I can post some of that here, but I'll also post it in the Guild forum so everybody can get it on their email.
Susie.
I have a question. Are you going to write a book and put it out online so that people can actually know you as an author as well?
So okay. I appreciate that question. And it's funny, just yesterday I was talking with my boys. I have 2 boys. How old are they? One's gonna be 12 on Monday. I'm not ready. But I was talking with my boys yesterday and they asked me about my daily band practice because they got into it. And one of them said something about me writing a book. And I realized that maybe that should be my practice for this year, is writing a little bit every day.
Yes.
Because
can
I
publish
would
it.
like to put it out. I would like to. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said, you can publish it on Amazon. You don't even have to look for a publisher. And then people will find it because just like you, they're looking.
So yeah. So thank you for that. That's my plan. That's my hope. Wendy.
Just want to make a comment about the daily practice. Last year, during the pandemic, I took Boot Camp Drawing 101 online at Pasadena City College with Nick Lowe, not the musician. And it's a really tough class. It's normally a semester, and this was 5 weeks. And one of the things, Jennifer, that we did, we had to do a daily drawing, and we had 3 minutes to do it. And it was, so a lot of it was just line drawing and stuff. And it was such an amazing practice. I mean, it got you over your fear of drawing and your fear of practice. And I really just wanted to say, I appreciate that so much, what you did. And I can see where it would become, the minute it becomes obligatory, you start to feel like I can't pull it off. But this was a great practice for me, that you have to draw something every day. And even if it's just mark making, which was fantastic. So
Right.
Thank you for this.
Well, to your point about the obligatory part, in the beginning, that was actually a wonderful motivator, like that I knew I had to engage with my loom. But once I got behind, that became the weight. So if I were to do it again, I think what I would do is do the open warp like Tommy did or something like that, and just represent, a centimeter a day, represent something. I don't know, but just not have to catch up. I think there was a question in the chat. What size yarn did you use? And what do you do with all your bands? So the yarn I used this was 5/2 on this one. Yes, for all these bands I used 5/2, and I haven't done anything with them yet. What I was thinking was possibly stitching them or tacking. I don't want to stitch the whole length, but maybe tacking them together vertically and then hanging them on a rod somewhere. But we live in Florida and we have very open floor plans with limited shelf space. Not shelf space, wall space. And the wall space we do have, I'm on my husband's side of the office, but the wall space we do have is taken up by bookcases. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? I can't see everybody's hands if there are.
I have a huge amount of rebosos from Mexico, and also bands from Mexico and from South America that I display because I'm an insane collector. And I hang them on pants racks over the door. So they've become, they're like part of the artwork. Like you walk in the house and over the door that leads to the bedrooms, there are all these racks hanging over the door. Yes, it's heavy on the door, sorry, but it's all textiles. And you can really find all kinds of crazy ways to display that stuff, get quilt racks, and your husband will go crazy, but hey, tough.
Well, we also they do Lego, so there's Lego everywhere too. We are out of room. We need a new house.
Why do you like band weaving? What is it that speaks to you?
It's funny. I wish I could concretely answer that. I don't know. There's just something about the textile that speaks to me. I love the warp-based texture of it, which is, it's funny. Like I said, when I said I joined the guild, to my local guild, to learn tapestry weaving. It's weft-based warp, right? I mean, there's something about the density of those textiles that just appeals to me. I don't know. And even when I started the band weaving, I can come up with a million wacky things to do with a band. I've made a band and I sewed them together. I ironed them, cut them into squares, starched them, and made origami goldfish out of them. and then made a mobile.
I love
There's
it.
just something, it's my medium. I don't know.
We'll have to get you to do some workshops on what to do with your bands.
Ah, man, you mean I'd have to come to California?
Terrible.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? This was
Well, I would just say if you can interact with your love every day, try it. 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. This was great, as I expected. Really appreciate
Yes,
it.
I did not disappoint.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wait, somebody, is that a hand, Michelle? Is that on purpose? Nope. Okay.
Thank you very
That's
much. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer.
Bye, all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the band weaving, those of you who are doing the workshops.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jen.